Welcome to episode 6 of New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name is Dustin, Dustin.
My name's Kenny and I don't do spelling.
He doesn't know how.
Nolan, Nolan.
Congratulations.
KennysUcks.
I thought it was an X.
Nolan, what is your favorite console of all time?
You put me on the spot. Game Boy Advance.
Ooh, fancy.
Mm-hmm. You weren't expecting that.
Kenny, I was not at all. Kenny, what is your favorite console of all time?
I said easy and had an answer in my mind and then almost changed my mind. Because 64 was great. But NES is my favorite.
NES. Mine is PlayStation 2.
That's a great one.
I just saw so many good games, man.
It had Final Fantasy VII, so of course you picked that.
That's all it
was PS1.
I just know you're a fanboy.
Yeah, Nolan's right actually. That was on PlayStation, but here's PlayStation 2.
Oh, you're right.
You could play all of them, so I could play like 6 Final Fantasies on my PlayStation 2.
Yeah, I think I always played it on the PS2. I think we had a PS2.
Yeah, I just love that.
That.
Love that system. But
that has nothing to do with this week.
Yeah, and you try to rush us to the game so quickly, but we've got one other thing to talk about.
Because we've got business to do, and it's games, and I'm excited.
We do have business, but this is part of the business, and it's recognizing that we hit a milestone this week. We got our very first 1-star rating.
Yeah!
Thank you.
Sweet.
Someone had to get really offended to take time to go on to iTunes and to leave a 1-star review.
I blame
You're
Nolan.
just asking for more now.
I mean,
true.
if people actually take time to listen to this, I don't think they're going to go give us 1-star ratings.
Ask for another one.
Maybe. I dare you to give us 1-star ratings.
You just ruined the podcast forever.
Fine. Won't talk about it then.
It was definitely a milestone. We're getting fairly close to another milestone, though. Which is 1,000 downloads in a week. We're not quite there yet, are we?
No. In a week, I think we hit that.
Have we? Sweet.
Well, yeah, because in a day we've gotten around 650. And then the next day we dropped to 300. So yeah, I
thought that 650 count was for an entire week. That's awesome.
No, that's for a day.
Well, to all of you, however many that I can't count that are listening, thanks. We love you guys.
Absolutely. All right. This week we played a game called Animaniacs.
Doodle-doodle-doo.
And
it was crazy to the max.
And we did a unique thing this week, which will be explained in our overview.
Anything you want to say about Animaniacs before I jump into telling folks what's up?
Well, I mean, yeah, if people don't know what Animaniacs is, like, you want to explain that?
That's true. If you've never seen Animaniacs or you didn't grow up, if you're a youngin' and didn't experience that in your childhood,
pause this
podcast. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say stop, but you might never come back because it's so good. Pause this podcast, run to YouTube, and watch some. Because it'll make you understand the game and where we're coming from and some of the things we say. And your life will be better. And Pinky and the Brain.
I do want to say that, yeah, a lot of characters, including Pinky and the Brain, spawned from this very creative television series. And but I do want to point out just from the beginning, if anybody does not know the plot or kind of like the story of the Animaniacs, they are 3 dog kids that are 2 brothers and their sister Dot, who are perpetually abused and mistreated because all they want to do is run around the Warner movie lot, and then they lock them in the tower whenever they get caught. And that's already bad, but the premise of the television show is that they've been locked in that tower from 1930 to 1990. That's terrible.
That's dark.
That's really dark.
I didn't realize it was that long. No wonder they're so crazy.
Yeah, no wonder they're so crazy. So
what's up with the game?
Nolan, straight to the point. So the series is super popular because everyone likes putting cartoons in a tower and not feeding them. And so they decided to make a video game out of it. They did that mid-90s, kind of 94, 95 era. right when this business was popular. And they created a version for the Super Nintendo as well as a version for the Genesis. We didn't decide last week which one we were going to play, so we said, hey, everybody go play Animaniacs. And so then we all did, but I don't think we all played the same version, which is kind of interesting and will give us some insight into the different forms of the game. So real quick, before I go a little more over the overview of the game, who played what?
I played the Genesis version because that's the one I played when I was a kid.
And
I didn't even know there was an NES version.
Yeah, and I played the Super Nintendo version because that's the one that I played as a kid, and I didn't even know there was a Sega Genesis version.
I played the Super Nintendo version because it looked like it was the older one, and this, after all, is a retro gaming podcast. So, I don't know. I just picked one.
Didn't they come out in the same year?
No, the Genesis one came out slightly after.
Oh,
I think 95 on the Genesis and 94 on the NES, I think.
I don't know if that's completely correct. I think they both came out in 94, but the thing
maybe
is...
Maybe it was the port to Game Boy that happened in 95.
I think that's what it is. I don't... Like, they're not entirely different games, though. Like, yes, they're very, very different, but they came out... Like, they were developed by the same company, and they came out around this, like, within the same year.
Yeah, but it's not like the same game on different versions. Like,
right.
It's different games altogether.
Right, but...
Which is weird.
Like, you mean the plot is different, or what?
Yeah, I mean, the plot is different, the gameplay
is different.
Everything's different. I mean,
let's talk in unison.
I don't know, it was really weird. Companies usually don't do that.
I don't know why they would do that. That's kind of weird.
I don't know either, but I gotta say, I think at least from what I read, Nolan, you probably got the better end of this.
I totally think you.
I think I don't even know about the other one, but I love this game.
Yeah.
Oh, when we're done talking about it, I think you'll be like, wish they played the Genesis version.
Okay. So who created? What was the company that created that developed?
This was Konami, who is a pretty well-known game maker.
Yeah, Castlevania, Contra, Metal Gear.
Mm-hmm. Just some classic kind of stuff.
Konami Code.
Very much catered the game to the audience that was watching the show. So at least in the NES version, maybe the Genesis isn't as bad. It's pretty clear that they're catering the game to fairly young kids. Just from the way gameplay happens, like your characters don't actually die. You know, they just get captured. It's not, you don't lose lives. You know, simple things like that. And the dialogue and the graphics. Like, this is definitely, from a design point of view, a kid game. Though from difficulty, I don't know if I buy that, because tougher than it could have been.
Although it caters to children, like, some of the humor in the game, as well as in the show itself, is more adult-esque in humor. Yeah?
I thought so.
It's true. But that very much, like, mirrors Animaniacs.
Right.
Yeah, it does. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't pick up on some of these jokes.
Absolutely.
But when I just played it this week, I was, like, laughing at some of these things.
Real quick confession time. How many people, because we were playing Animaniacs, went and watched at least part of an episode or a song
Just
or
you.
something?
No,
Just me?
I see a few raising their hands.
Okay, yeah, I'm...
Thank you for that. You can put your hands down now.
Oh, and by the way, if you didn't know, we record this in front of a live audience, so...
Yeah.
There were 15 or 16 of our 18 people raised their hands, so I'm in the majority here.
The characters, you're playing all three of them in both of these games, so you can switch between them. And so you've got Yakko, who's the older brother. You've got Wakko, who is...
The best.
The crazy,
That's
insane little dog human. And then you've got their sister Dot.
Who is the best.
And so they, in the Sega version, am I right? No, they each have a unique kind of ability.
Yes, and you have to use each ability at a different time, like, to progress.
And we can talk further in the gameplay about that. In the Super Nintendo version, they don't have abilities.
No, it's the same thing for everybody.
And the only benefit of having all three is that you can stack them. And so, I mean, the games are very different. Now, in looking at both of them, they're both impressive graphically for the time, but I think Super Nintendo has it on graphics. I think
I didn't look at any of the Genesis gameplay, but that wouldn't surprise me because the NES looked great.
I mean,
the SNES.
Very pretty. The colorful and these just full sprites. It's hard to explain without looking at it, but
It looks like the cartoon.
Yeah.
I mean, they did a great job.
oh man, it straight up looks like the cartoon. And
Every time I like stopped and my character started dancing, I just got the biggest grin on my face.
yeah, so
It's dorky but fun and looks great. Has that vibe.
that's what happens with the Super Nintendo. They dance in unison, which is fun. But Nolan, did you stop moving them to see what they do?
I did, because I was thinking about that from Earthworm Jim. I didn't do that in Earthworm Jim. I think Kenny mentioned it, but you don't have to wait a long time before they start doing stuff. And Wakko bounces his head. That's why he's my favorite. Like, his head comes off and he bounces it like a basketball.
Right.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Is that what happens in that one? In
No,
yours?
no, no. They
They just dance.
Lame.
I'm saying just dance doesn't give it credit. It's
Yeah.
kind of humorous.
I mean, all throughout it, like, there's one stage where whoever you're controlling has to leave the rest, and so the other two just stand on the ledge and wave goodbye to the third that's swinging away, and then when you finally land on the other side, your two siblings are there, welcoming you back. Just really fun.
That's pretty funny.
Let's hit the two stories real quick, and then we'll move into the gameplay. What was kind of the premise of the Genesis version?
Yakko, Wakko, and Dot are on the set of a bunch of different movies. They're at the studios, and they want to open up a hip-hop culture museum. So their plan is to collect different pieces of memorabilia from movies and open up a museum.
So not
until
pop culture, but hip hop culture.
No, yeah, hip hop museum.
I
You
love
could write a
this.
rap
So I was
song
like,
about this.
okay, but none of the, you don't get any kind of hip hop memorabilia. It's just for movies. And towards the end, you find out Pinky and the Brain are behind something. I don't really understand what, but you have to beat them because, of course, they want to take over the world. So that's the short of
No one
it.
ever
That is it.
understands
There's
what
nothing
they're
else to it. That's the story.
I mean, the brain does, but no one else ever understands.
Who is Pinky and the Brain?
They are lab rats.
That's
Their
what
characters?
No, that's what I wanted to know. Some people have never seen this and have no idea. But
Okay.
Pinky and the Brain have one thing that they do, every day.
Brain wants to take over the world. Pinky's like, what are we going to do today, Brain? And he's like, we're going to take over the world. And so he's got some plan. And in this case, they disguise themselves as like the head of Warner Brothers or something like that. I couldn't quite follow it.
Yeah. All right.
Probably the funniest part of Animaniacs is the Pinky and the Brain skit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Kenny, what is the premise to the Super Nintendo version?
They pull no punches from the outset. Pinky and the Brain, world domination, and the way they're going to do that is by getting really rich by making a movie. Because if you make a movie and it sells a lot and you get really rich, then you can take over the world, which is good news for
Yeah, just
coming
look at George
blockbuster
Lucas.
season. Hmm. Exactly. So they set out to take over the world via a movie, and then the script to this movie gets scattered all over the studio, and you have to go around and collect pages of the movie script
Lame.
to stop them from winning. Yeah, hip hop guy.
Hip hop is awesome.
let's allow that to take us into talk about gameplay.
Gameplay.
So it sounds like in both of these games you've got various stages that are themed, but they are set in kind of the Warner Brothers studios, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. In the Super Nintendo version, you've got various stages that I'm not sure how they, didn't infringe on like copyright and things like that, because at one point you're chasing the White Rabbit from Alice's story, and maybe in that same stage you're writing the creature in Never-Ending Story.
That one got me so hyped.
Like
Falcor?
yeah.
When
you're
I saw
writing-
when
That's awesome.
Falcor, my homie the Luck Dragon, I got pumped.
In another stage, it's the sci-fi stage. Like aliens run past you, not just random aliens, but from
Like from Alien.
from
Yep.
Alien?
Yeah,
There's
and the
Wizard of
Predator.
Oz references. There's E.T. references.
That
Uh,
ET reference was so good.
Yeah.
You're all three of you are in a cart and you fly off this roller coaster type thing and you go past the moon.
It's like the bike.
Yeah,
And
Uh-huh.
but then you hit the moon and you're on a set, so then the moon rolls after you and you have to escape from it.
I love these games because mine. You want me to
Yeah.
go into the okay? On the Genesis version, yeah, there's only 4 stages, but each one is themed and it's obviously one of like a movie. So the first one was based off Indiana Jones, and all they did was like change the names of like the movies and the characters slightly, and most of the time it still rhymed with them. And like the memorabilia from the first stage is Indiana Jones hat, and then the second stage is based off Star Wars, and they called it like Space Wars or something like that. And you have to go get Darth Vader's helmet, but they called him something else. And so they just barely avoided copyright infringement, I guess, by changing the names and like kind of making fun of the movies. So it was actually
Sure.
pretty brilliant. It's really
It's kind
funny.
of parody instead of.
It is. It's parody.
Yeah.
That's what I thought of.
Yeah, and so
Which skirts a lot of the legal issues. I wonder too if a lot of those properties are owned by Warner Brothers, doing some sort of like internal self-promotion.
True. The reason, and Kenny and I haven't talked about this, but the reason why I think that we both agree that we got the short end of the stick and you, Nolan, had maybe the better experience is because although, we're talking good things about the thematics and the story and the creativity and the art behind the Super Nintendo version,
Gameplay was frustrating.
frustratingly difficult.
Uh-huh.
It's a platform, and so you're just going left to right for the most part. But there's kind of 3 different levels from there's top and middle and bottom that you can move among, and that's very important in this game because if you're on the wrong level, you can often fall off or run into something that you didn't mean to run into. And as soon as you get hit or as soon as you fall off the stage, you're quote unquote dead, and so you have to start the stage over again.
For catering to kids, they made this game like frustratingly difficult. It
We're
might have
talking
been
Earthworm
less.
Jim difficulty.
No,
Almost.
I think. Well,
You think more?
No, maybe not. I remember I didn't get past the fire stage for the longest time.
Stage 2.
I think it's up there. Different, but I think comparable. Like I think it might have been kinder to these kids to lock them in a water tower for 60 years than to like expect them to beat this game.
True.
The gameplay on the Genesis version, like y'all said before, each character has their unique ability.
Which is so fun, and we didn't get that.
Yeah, what are the unique abilities?
Yakko has a paddle ball, like a little is that what it's called?
Yeah.
It's like a paddle
Uh-huh.
and then a string attached to a ball.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then Wakko has a hammer, which was my favorite and probably the most used in the run. And then in the run, like I'm a speedrunner. And then Dot blows kisses and like hypnotizes enemies,
See, that's
which
so
I
cute.
rarely used unless they made you.
Yeah.
Like,
See-
some places it was obvious.
That's just adorable. Like, all we could do is run, jump. We could pick something up and throw it, which I didn't use, and then you can stack on top of each other so that you can jump to a higher.
Jump to a higher place, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so you couldn't even stack on each other.
Well, don't act like that's a cool feature. You had unique abilities for all yours, which is really cool.
Yeah, and there's no like. It was pretty linear compared to what you're describing, where there's like 3 tiers on the stage. This one, you just kind of will approach an obstacle, and you'll need to push. I don't think any of the other characters can push except for Yakko. He can like push boxes to get higher, or break rocks with the hammer or something like that. So it was actually really fun.
You're having to kind of like swap characters and think and
A lot, yeah.
strategize. Yeah,
Mhm.
that
and
sounds
some
like a lot
some
of
of
fun.
the stages were difficult. I actually got past a part I couldn't as a kid because I just didn't think like one of the levels begins with the guard throwing bombs at you. And as a kid, I was like, I have to beat him. But actually, you just wait till he's done throwing bombs, and then a horse hits him and knocks him out of the way. So
That's great. So is the Genesis version? I know. Is it completely linear, like one stage and then the next stage and then the next stage, or is there stage selection?
There's stage selection, and you can actually go in whatever order you want. I think I did 1, 2, 3, 4, but it seemed like I could pick any of them.
Ours is complete random order as well. You can go.
You get to pick it.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah,
you can
Pick your order.
you can go in whatever order that you want to.
And each level's a different studio, like a different movie set.
Yes.
Okay,
A
yeah,
different
that's how this
area
was.
of the studio. Yeah.
Let's talk about how it aged.
Aged.
Obviously, there's a lot of nostalgia with this for those that watched, this kind of television back in the 90s. I mean, this was a hit show,
Mm-hmm.
and
Popular.
so a lot of people watched it, and it like it created a lot. Like Pinky and the Brain were characters that had their own spin-off from this. I think the Good Feathers had something that were
Yeah.
spin-offs from this,
I believe so.
which are pigeons
Yeah.
that are like the godfathers, and so like it was very creative, and so to play these games, I think there's a lot of nostalgia involved. But how do you think the game, it's like the content, here's my stance. I think the content aged well. I think a lot of people in playing one of these games are going to, still think the humor is funny, think the characters are interesting, and all that kind of stuff. But for me, I don't think that I think where this nostalgia carries over well, the gameplay, at least in the Super Nintendo version, kind of kills, the replayability of the game.
Yeah, I found myself kind of in, like, as I was playing, kind of in an arc of, like, starting the game and being sort of frustrated because it felt a little clunky and the controls were weird and the fact that characters didn't do different things. And so I sort of started frustrated with it. And then as I got more into the world, it was really fun and funny and nostalgia, and so I was having a lot of fun. And then just the difficulty and the grind of doing it again and again to make any progress sort of went back and made it not fun again. Like I was kind of iffy about it, and then I was having a blast, and then I was just kind of frustrated with it. And I feel like because it has those frustrations in terms of someone picking it up and fully enjoying it today, I don't think they would. But they chose really timeless stuff for their references, and the characters are fun, and even though the music was repetitive, it's catchy, and the dancing is great. And so, yeah, I'm with you completely. I think you nailed it.
See, I think, well, at least for my version, I think it aged pretty well actually on all fronts, because it is still really funny. It's witty and smart. They did a great job with level design and the fact that you have different skills that you have to use to progress, and trial and error, and platforming around the guard, and he'll like show up at different times. And the fact that it is based off of a show, unlike Jurassic Park, we saw that was a complete flop, where you have a great movie or show and then the game was terrible. This was done perfect. Like, it's really, really great for fans of the show, and I think if you don't really know much about it, you can still like it because the game is actually fun. It's not too long, and that I may just be speaking from nostalgia because I really, like, as I was playing, I was remembering stuff that, from a kid, I was like, oh yeah, I love this level. But even past that, I think they just made a good game. Like, I don't know, even if it wasn't Animaniacs, it was still really fun as a platformer.
So verdict is, if you're a fan of Animaniacs or want to learn a little bit about them, because it was a fun kind of now pop culture thing. I still have friends who quote Pinky and the Brain today. Play the Genesis version.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah,
I haven't played your version, but
you don't.
I'll agree. You don't need to. Yeah,
Okay.
you don't need to.
You don't need to. It's a very pretty game, and it's fun for nostalgia purposes, but if you can get that from the Genesis version and you've got better gameplay in the Genesis version, play that version.
When you're competing on platformers in an era where, like, platformers had so many great ones, you can definitely choose better than the NES version of this
did you
game.
have to fight bosses at the end of your stages?
Yes. Very difficult bosses. Once again, you in one fantasy stage you have to fight a king, and by fighting there's a huge anvil that continually drops, and you have to run under it time it just right so that the king gets smashed by the anvil. And another one, a guy is controlling these huge like gorilla fists.
Those hands.
That are
got
slamming,
smashed by those things so many times.
slamming down on the ground that you have to avoid, and they knock down like nuts or coconuts from the tree that you grab and throw at this little flying toy. So yeah, there were bosses. Were there bosses in the Genesis version?
Yeah. Sometimes it was just the guard. I believe the first boss and maybe the second one was the guard, and then you have to fight a vampire in the Friday the 13th stage, and then Pinky and the Brain. So yeah, there are bosses, and then there's actually like sort of mini bosses in some of the stages.
Yeah, and there's a vampire in ours too. I wonder if, I guess this just comes back to, I don't know why a company would come out with two different games for this.
Completely different games. I don't know either.
Did they
Genesis
divide?
came out. I do think Genesis came out next, and I wonder if they learned lessons from the first one and tried to improve it.
See, I don't know. Did they just divide their development team up and were like, make a game for the Genesis and make one for the SNES, and then at the end they were like, you didn't tell us to make the same game? Like it's really strange.
It is bizarre.
Like, the Genesis one came out May 14th, 1994, and the Super Nintendo came out November 19th, 1994. So
it was actually later?
Yeah, so they were in development at the same time.
Oh, that's bizarre.
I don't know. That's strange.
It is strange. But, as Kenny has already said, if you're going to play an Animaniacs game, play the Genesis version. But along with that, go watch some good Animaniacs television.
Yeah, if you don't play the games, go watch the show because it's great. It's a great cartoon.
And that is one that has stayed timeless.
Let's summarize.
The final shell shock.
Kenny, who out of the three siblings do you most relate to?
Oh, I don't know about relate to, but Dot's my favorite. She's cute.
You think you're a cute, dainty girl?
Yes, that's Kenny's answer. All right, let's move on.
I'm probably most like Yakko, unfortunately.
Well, no, I mean, let's go back to Dot. So, like, you wear...
What kind of dress do you have?
You wear dresses.
No, just a bow in my hair.
Pink is your Gross.
I got that.
All right, this got weird.
I just got a mental image. Okay, so Yakko?
I'm probably most like Yakko, but Dot's the best. She's who I played as, primarily.
Nolan, which of the three do you most relate to?
Probably Yakko, because... I don't know, some of the things he says in the dialogue is really funny. Like, so I think I'm really, really funny. No, he says something along the lines of, we have to go get this memorabilia just like the sheriff rode into the town or something like that. And she was like, didn't the horse ride in? And he goes, hey, Dot, when you talk to me, shut up.
And that sounds like something you'd say. It does.
And then you start the stage.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
When you talk to me, shut up. Oh man, that is really funny.
How about you, Wakko? Who are you most like?
I'm not like Wakko. I wish I was like Wakko.
Are we all like Yakko?
I think so. I wish I was like Wakko. Wakko's insane.
He's hilarious.
Do we need more diversity on this show? Are we three Yakkos without a dot or a Wakko?
We need to bring in a guest Wakko.
We do. I listened to some other podcasts this week, and I realized there's two things that we're missing to have a successful podcast. One is accents. I think if we have accents, more people will listen to us.
If we were all British, we'd get like hipster hype.
Yeah, and then two, we need a girl. So who's going to be the female from now on? I guess the one that's mostly like
Dot. Yeah.
I figure I have the manliest sounding voice, so it is the most difficult for me to fake it. I think probably Dustin, you're the best at faking the woman sounds.
Rude. Hey, Kenny?
Just saying.
Kenny?
Yeah.
When you talk to me, shut up. Nolan, okay, but Nolan's spot on with impersonations. I'll tell you that
I could probably
much.
do a Dot.
Well, Nolan, I think you can do a Dot, but you could also give us a British accent too.
If you're lucky, you'll get some next week. I don't know.
Back to the game. Kenny, what was your favorite stage out of all the ones that you played through?
As silly as it is, because it really is silly, I loved the water tower, like in the middle.
You could play that?
Yeah, it wasn't like you didn't have to like beat it for progression. I really think it was like almost like a mini game. Like you just went through it for fun.
Yeah, what is it?
Like you just get on a elevator that takes you up the water tower, and birds fly at you, and you have to knock them down, and you have to avoid the cop like spraying you off, the security guard spraying you off with water. And it was simple. I think probably it was the only one that was easy enough for me to consistently beat, which is probably why I like it the best. But you ended up at the top of the tower, and so it felt Animaniacs-ish, and it was fun for some reason.
Nolan, what was your favorite stage?
The Star Wars one, because that was the most. The space combat one, because it was the most nostalgic for me. As soon as the stage started, I recognized all of the layout of the level, and I love it. It's really fun.
And I think mine was the fantasy level one. Primarily because that was the first stage I kept going to, and so I was stuck on it for the most part. But in that one was the one where you chase the white rabbit as you're flying on broomsticks, where you ride Falcor, and where you go through like the king's castle. And so I enjoyed that one the most. Did you know that during its run on television, it was the second most popular children's show?
I didn't know that.
So what?
Mighty Morphin Power
Power
Rangers. Wow, wow, wow.
I hope they didn't make a game. I really don't want to end up.
Yes!
No, they
that.
did, and it's so fun.
It's so fun, and it's
Is it
going
really?
on the list.
Yes, it's on
Oh, I'm
Genesis.
sorry. I'm sorry, viewers, listeners.
I played that one on Genesis too. I'm sure it's also on a different console. So we should do this exact same thing.
So good. If me and my wife are actually watching through the original series, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, right now, and we're on episode 42. So we're trucking along.
Deep in there.
That's
You gotta watch
awesome.
the movie. The movie's really good.
Yeah, I think the movie comes in between the first and the second season, so we got to get through the 60 episodes of the first season first.
Ivan Ooze.
As we wrap up, I want to thank all of you guys that have retweeted us this week. So really, this last week was our first full week kind of with a Twitter. We're branching out into the social sphere of life, and we actually had some multiple retweets from some of our listeners, and that's really helpful.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
it means a lot that you would not be embarrassed of us to share us with your friends.
Because I am.
Because we haven't told anybody about this thing.
We're actually using pseudonyms.
If you could take a moment out of your busy schedule and rate and review this podcast, unless you're going to give us a 1-star, then just send us an email with your problems. We'd appreciate that.
We're gonna get like 5 1-stars this week.
Wow, that
Are you
train.
serious? A train right now?
Sound effect. Say it was a sound effect. It was the 1-star sound effect.
That's
See?
so loud.
On iTunes or on Stitcher, you can rate and review us. And for every rating and reviewing, that helps us tremendously. We'd love for you to play the games along with us throughout the week. Send us your commentary through email, ngppodcast@gmail.com.
Suggestions for games to put on the list. That's where you send them as well.
And suggestions for the name of this master retro gaming list. We need a name for it as it continues to grow. We'd love your gaming suggestions. We'd love your commentary on the games that we're playing throughout this week. And so that's ngppodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on social media, either Facebook or Twitter, /NGP podcast. So this week we have decided to not put the games in the randomizer and randomly select the game that we're going to play for the first time.
That's
Why?
kind of blasphemous. You should tell people why. There's good reason.
There is good reason. So this coming Friday, the 23rd of October, a game is coming out called Assassin's Creed Syndicate. And that's the next addition to the Assassin's Creed series, which many people are fans of, myself included. And so in honor of that, we want to play the game that kind of birthed the idea of the Assassin's Creed series. They borrow heavily from this series, and it's very similar in many different ways, and I think they would agree to that, and they would believe that it's been an extension of the dream of the Prince of Persia series. And Prince of Persia first came out mid '80s, and so it's an old game. In fact, it came out originally for the Apple II.
What's that?
Awesome.
I don't know, some kind of computer or something. I think it was the predecessor to the iPhone.
Oh, iPhone 1.
Yeah.
It's the original iMac.
So we have decided this week that we're going to play the original Prince of Persia. And so if you would like to play with us, then figure out how and play.
I don't have an Apple II. Can we do a port? Can we play a port?
I think we've got to go out and buy Apple IIs.
All right.
I actually
I'm
will
pulling up eBay.
dust off my old Apple II.
Yeah, I think they did multiple ports, Super Nintendo being one of them, and so we'll probably hop on the old SNES and play Prince of Persia. We'd love for you to play with us. And as we've said twice already, send us in your thoughts, your comments as you play through along with us. And next week we'll meet together and talk about Prince of Persia.
Can't wait.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great week.
That was really good, Kenny. Good job.
Proud of you.